For anyone interested in level design for smoking guns, you'll notice that some levels play at better frame rates than others, and there are some good reasons for that. One is how you design the level from the start, and then there are of course some detail and structural elements to consider, as well as texture elements. So let's go ahead and pick on one of my maps. It's Deathmatch Hang'em. As you can see, it's a simple box map with lots of buildings and lots of details thrown in. Not the perfect design. So here I've created a small test level. It's a simple box design, much like Hang'em High. Everything's open. I filled it with tree models. And once in game, you can use r_show_tries1 to show you the actual polygons that are drawn with the game engine. And with this particular type of design, everything's basically in one big room. There's pretty much no hope for optimizations of any sort. Nothing to hide behind to block viz. So it's just not a good idea. So a better approach would be a corridor style map, such as you see here. This is the approach that id Software took with their original Quake 3 game. You can see I've got tree models inserted into this design as well. Now when I mention a corridor style map, that does not limit you to an indoor environment such as you see in Quake 3. You have to think on a bigger scope. This can be an outdoor environment. Imagine cliffs where I have these wooden walls, or perhaps a row of buildings around the perimeter of the map. At any rate, the walls that I have here are structural brushes, so you can see that some natural elimination of polygon drawing by the engine does occur, and that's a good thing, but we can take it a step further. Even though the player can't see those trees through the wall, the game engine renders them anyway, which is what causes a frame rate performance hit in some cases, such as you see here. I like to use a front-end compiler, in this case Q3 Map2 Tools, but you can do your compiling with a batch file as well, of course. In this particular program, we'll go to the Viz tab, select Custom, and Save Part. What this does is allow you to see the planes that are created by the compiler when you look at the map in GTK Radiant. So we'll go to Plugins, Part View, and load the part file, and select Show 3D and 2D. And the planes that are created by the compiler are shown as these colorful walls, I guess you would call them. And you'll notice here that these coffins that I have in the map were created with structural brushes. Pretty much everything you create by default is structural. The compiler assumes that you know what you're doing, and every time you create a structural brush, that it's supposed to create a plane to help with optimization. You notice on the 2D side here, these vertical lines are created by the compiler by default at certain intervals. And that's based on block size, which is another feature that you can manipulate within the map in the world spawn, but that's another topic. For now we won't bother with it. So we'll select these structural coffins that I have here. We want to turn those into detail brushes, which means that the compiler will see those as more or less invisible and will not create planes. We'll go up to Selection and select Make Detail, or the keyboard shortcut for that is Control M. A handy feature in Radiant is the keyboard shortcut Control D, which toggles detail brushes off or on, and that comes in very, very handy if you want to see what's what. These trees are ASE models and therefore not structural by default, so we don't need to be concerned with that. Another thing that affects performance is textures. This coffin we have against the wall and against the ground, so anything that's not visible by the player should be textured with caulk, as is the case with the back side of this coffin. Let's look at the bottom. As you can see here, I've got it textured with wood, which is a waste of resources, so we need to turn that into caulk as well. If the player can't see it, there's no point in having it textured. These little things like this will add up over the course of the map. So we'll move it back into position and call it good. Now, to eliminate the engine from rendering objects which we should not be able to see, we can use a little technique that most people refer to as hint brushing or vis blocking. And we create a brush that goes all the way up to the corner so it's nice and straight in line with this wall. We'll load the common texture set, and we will select hint skip for this entire brush. I won't go into the specifics of everything here because it's a bit technical, and I don't fully understand it myself, to be honest. But what we want to do is, using the clipper tool, create a 45-degree angle or so, and then on this one face that's on the angle, using Control Shift, we'll select that face and turn that into the hint texture. Now on the opposite side of the wall here, we'll do the same thing again. We'll create a new brush that fills the entire volume. Think of it as water filling a jug, and we'll cut it on a 45-degree angle. It's on the exact same angle as the other brush. Select that one face and apply the hint texture. And we'll just repeat the same procedure for this small short corridor on the other side of the map here. Now, after you've recompiled the map, we can reload the new part file, and you can see the new planes that are created, and you'll notice that the coffins no longer create 40 or 50 planes that are unneeded. Everything's nice and neat now. And if you look over on the 2D side, you'll notice this long diagonal plane that has been created, so that now hopefully when you're in game and you move from one quadrant to the next, this diagonal plane will prevent the engine from rendering objects that you cannot see through the wall anyway. So hopefully this is going to improve our frame rates. Now back in game, we can see that because of these new planes that we created, that objects beyond that plane are no longer rendered, thus improving frame rates. Same thing for the other side of the map here. In this small corridor, once you move beyond the plane, polygons are no longer rendered from the other side of the map. But you'll notice, you see how the trees pop back into view a little bit too soon for my liking? We could probably do a better job, so I should go back and tweak these hint brushes and see if I can do better. So in closing, I'd like to remind you that textures are important, structural and detail brushes are important, and above all, a good layout is the most important. Good mapping to you, and we hope to see your level soon at smokingguns.net.